Hello, welcome back to the shop. So I've decided to get back on the Logan now that I am sort of back in my shop. The shop is not in an ideal state right now because it has a lot of things added to it that were located in a garage in another house that I used to own that I just sold, which is really, bottom line, that's where I've been for the past 6 months, is fixing that house up for sale, moving everything out of it, all that good stuff. So, yeah, I just went back and looked at all the videos I had done on this before I sort of abandoned the project. Yeah, really last thing I did was get this headstock put back together, and it's working pretty well at this point. Let's see here, make sure I don't have, okay. Oh, first thing I need to do before I do that, I need to get a light to show you what's going on in there. Hang on. And this is how you tension this lever. Changes the tension of the belts. And so I usually store it without tension on it. And when ready to operate, put tension on it. Now that enables me, when it's loose, to change these belts here. What I can't figure out right now is how I'm supposed to loosen these two, because they stay together when you adjust this lever. And I should be able to change, that's kind of like my high and low range. Right now it's in high range. And it's just something I haven't figured out yet. So anyway, yeah, I just now accidentally started it. With the belts not tensioned. That's pretty good. Quiet running. This is with no gears attached, of course. So that was the last thing I did. What I think I'm now going to do is go ahead and clean these guys up, these, reassemble them all. So these all had grease put on them originally, and that grease has turned into it's like a just crusty, hard mess, which is why I believe in using oil rather than grease. Now, arguably, grease is what's supposed to go on it because there's a Zerk fitting. So, I'm not going to blame anybody for putting grease on it. I just haven't had good luck with grease. It seems like every old lathe that I've ever taken apart that had grease on it, it's been like this. That old stuff is doing more harm than good by the time it gets like this. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm just going to clean that whole assembly, put it back together, then finish what I started on the tailstock, and I'll talk a little bit about that when I get to it. So here's my reversing gear partially disassembled. I did get that nut off, but I'll tell you, it seems like these guys are pressed on. I don't think they're just going to pop off, and I don't think it's worth it for me to see what they are. Is that they're pressed onto this shaft, and then that shaft is a bearing arrangement down in there. So I think I'm going to leave well enough alone as far as that's concerned for right now. Not sure that would do any good. Yeah, I'm sure there's some gunk down in there I could get out, but I'm just going to clean it as is. Clean these guys up. They just ride on brass sleeves. So yeah, just get the grease and oil them. Get this all back together. Try to clean the paint as much as I can, and yada yada. Alright, I just made a liar out of myself. I decided, working on these other two and how difficult it's been, how tenacious that stuff is down in there. I was like, man, I'm never going to get this stuff out of here unless I get them apart. And then in truth, they came apart pretty easily. The way it worked was I basically just held the gear, tapped with my plastic hammer, and it dropped out. And it worked fine. Next step will be getting this out. I mean, potentially, which I think if I pop this key, I will be able to get it out. So I'm going to give that a shot. And I think that's the only thing holding it there. Yeah, with the key out, it just slid right out. Okay, so it wasn't a bearing. This is actually a sleeved surface, just like all the others. So not too big a deal. It is a very nice fit, though, I'll tell you that. Yeah, no slop. Yeah, that's all very encouraging. That's like the polar opposite of that the Atlas. The situation with that is I was taking those pieces apart, if you recall. But this just gives you an idea. This is the kind of stuff. This is what grease turns into inside of machines. So I'm not a fan of grease. Yeah, a little more of the same. I'm bearing down hard to get this. Look at that junk. It's not doing anything any good. Alright, so there are all the pieces and parts. Everything got cleaned with Purple Power solution, and I got in as well as I could all the way down to the roots of all the gears. One thing I wanted to point out, in case somebody's watching this who will actually be doing one of these, the keyway here, this is a piece of felt that goes in there. I almost got thrown away thinking it was just caked up grease, but then I noticed, oh no, it's something. And what it is there's an oil hole up here, right there. Goes all the way through, and so that oil hole feeds that felt, and that's what keeps this thing nice and smooth and keeps it from wearing out. Everything in here is really tight. I'm really impressed. So apparently no damage was done with all that caked up grease and dirt. I'm happy. So I'll put that back together, and then this guy. Oh, by the way, the Purple Power took off the crappy red paint that had been gunked on here. Gone. So the reason it's all shiny is I sprayed everything with WD-40. Well, I first rinsed it really well with tap water. I'm a little paranoid about that Purple Power because there are people who say it's bad for your metals, that it'll start a corrosion process, and you know, that bothers me, the possibility. But you know, I don't know, there's so many other people that use it and it works so well compared to everything else that I've tried that I just stick with it. But then I'm a little paranoid, and like I said, after I'm done cleaning, I really rinse everything well with fresh water, and then after that, you know, air dry it, you know, using the compressor, and then I'll douse everything with WD-40, which is supposed to be a water displacer, of course. There you go. That's a thing of beauty compared to what it was. Now for that. Same deal. Alright, for my own future reference, this is how this comes apart. This fella here goes in here. This peg right here is what holds up the banjo. Banjo to come off. Something like you have to take that out. That's what I'm doing right now. But actually that's not apparently doing all that needs to be done, so there may be more to it. I mean, I know at some point I'll be loosening that, but alright, we're going to see what happens when we're going to play with it a little bit here, figure it out. Alright, little gentle tapping and it came right off. Now, I know you're saying, hey, didn't you take this thing apart before? Well, yes, I did, nearly a year ago. And also, I don't think I took this part off. Pretty sure I just carried this whole assembly. You know, I got the tailstock off, got the carriage off, undid the lead screw, retainer back there, carriage came off, and then unbolted the change gears from there, and I think everything just sort of came off as one piece. Everything you see there. So now what I'm doing is uncharted territory for me. Alright, so there we go. We've got the reverse gear all installed. I was waiting to finish because I wanted to adjust this guy down here. And the other assembly here was in the way, so once I got that off, I finished installing the reverse gear. Note that there's a clip down here that holds the whole thing on, and then travel between forward and reverse is restricted by these screws. Has a great little detent mechanism, and I'm going to get it to engage. Once it engages, oops, that's neutral, and then in order for it to engage, it's got to actually mesh. There we go. So, I hope you saw that. It's just such a, I know I'm repeating myself, but the whole mechanism is so much more robust than the Atlas. That's just always amazes me. That's been sitting all night. Hoping that'll all just come right off now, yes. I think a lot of it will. Good. Yep. Hopefully this won't be as hard as the other stuff. So for the most part, all the gears have looked great. I'm just happened to notice a little on some of these teeth. Let's see if I can find one, like that one right there. See that edge? It's catching. There's a little nib there, and it's repeated all around the pattern here. And nothing on this side. So something, I'm wondering what that might have been that would have caused that. It goes all the way around. Not here. Okay. So something I found kind of interesting. You see that set screw there? Yeah, that serves no function other than to lock these pieces together. There's three pieces that make up this unit. This collar and sleeve, flange sleeve, however you want to describe it, and then this big thick collar here, and then the gear itself. So that set screw just keeps this business from turning. So I was sort of theorizing, you know, why it was built that way. And initially I was thinking just economy of materials and ease of construction, because then you can just make a standard gear. not cutting down all this material to make the other parts. So that makes sense just from that standpoint. But then I also wondered, is this part of a change arrangement that, you know, if you wanted to convert this to metric or something, you'd change out this gear. Alright, just for documentation purposes, before this comes apart, this is inside towards the machine. You have this sliding nut, you have a spacer, you have the big gear. Looks like there is a spacer in between, a thin spacer. Then we have this nut with the Zerk fitting, or bolt, actually, I guess that is. That'll be interesting to see how that operates. So, let's take a look. There we go. Bet you that'd be expensive to replace. Be fun to make though. Now, I think that you can actually inject oil through one of these, so is that necessarily a grease fitting? I'm not positive, because that is just a brass sleeve, which typically you oil. So I'll have to do some homework on that one. And let's see, this washer, does it have anything? Does it have a... Oh yeah, okay, so it's got that part there. It rides in here. It has this little bit of a space, or a step right there. Alright. Oh, okay, so these are not going to come apart unless I press them apart. Do I want to do that or not? I'm wondering. I'm thinking I can probably, you know, after an overnight bath in that goo, looks like maybe I'll be able to get all that. I'll try. You know how that goes. I say I'm not going to take it apart, and then what do you know? Well, there we go. That part of the drivetrain is cleaned up. I just have light oil in it right now. I'll eventually put bar and chain on it, but I think I'm going to take this apart again. So I just want to run it one time. So right now it's in neutral. Yeah, of course she's slinging oil, which she should. It's light oil. Well, guys, I'm going to end this one here. I think it's probably going to be pretty long as is. Bottom line, I actually think all this does work. I played around with it some more, you know, safely with two hands rather than one. Put it at the low speed, and I don't have any idea why I had it in such a high range anyway to start with. And yeah, I got the cross slide to work, the normal carriage operation to work left and right using the clutch, and the oh gosh, I forget what the heck you call the typical Atlas-like arrangement that grabs onto the feed screw, half nut. What the heck do they call that thing? You know what I'm talking about. This works too. So everything's working. I don't want to run it too much because I really just, given the condition of all the other gears and everything, I want to take it apart and clean it. But it's just nice to know that it's not broken. And next thing I'm going to do, next video, is I'll start talking about this a little bit. Some things about this kind of tick me off about the way it was treated in the past, but you know, is what it is. And so that's a wrap. That's where we are on this. I got a couple more days of weekend. Hurricane Florence left us alone, so we're okay. Some friends of mine are hurting down in Carolina. Hope you guys get some relief, are able to get your houses back in order, and wish you the best of luck.